Hello everyone. In today's video, I'm going to be introducing you to my new sewing machine. Many of you know that I am an ambassador for Baby Lock, and earlier this year they sent me the Baby Lock Chorus sewing machine. So I've had several months to learn the machine, to check out all of the different features, and now I'm ready to share everything with you. Now, today's video is the first in a series of videos that I will be bringing to you all about the Baby Lock Chorus. So if you have this machine and you like to explore, then get in front of your machine and follow along. If you don't have the machine and you're in the market for an upgrade, then there is a link in my description box that will take you directly to my ambassador page. That way you can check out the machine for yourself. But stay tuned because I have many more videos coming. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through the entire machine and show you all of the different parts. So let's get started. Okay, we're going to start off by taking a look at the front side of the machine, and I have the power on so that you can see the LCD screen and what it looks like when you power the machine up. And now we're going to go through all of the different parts of the machine, and I'm going to be following along in the instruction and reference guide. So if you already have this machine, then you can grab your booklet and follow along with me. And I'm going to follow the diagrams from pages B11 through B13. So we're going to start on the front of the machine at the very top. So here we have the top cover, and this is where you will do all of your threading and winding. So you will thread your machine and wind your bobbin in this area. Over to the right of the threading area, we have the thread guide for bobbin winding. So when you are ready to wind your bobbin, you will pass your thread through here. And I'm going to demonstrate all of this in a later video, but I just want to show you the part. So this is where you will pass your thread through to wind the bobbin. And then to the left of that, you have the pretension disc, and you will pass your thread around the pretension disc when you're winding the bobbin. Then over or down below the pretension disc and the thread guide is your spool pin. And of course, this is where you're going to place your spool of thread. And then to the left of that, you have the spool cap. And this prevents your spool of thread from coming off of the spool pin when you're sewing. And the spool cap also, just in case you didn't know this, the spool cap also prevents the thread from catching on the end of your spool of thread. So if you are using a brand that has the edge of the spool that has like rough edges or a groove, your thread can get caught in that groove or on those rough edges and snap or tear while you're sewing. So the spool cap prevents that from happening, especially when you're using a cap that's larger than the end of your, larger or equal to the end of your spool of thread. And then we have our bobbin winder. And there are two parts to the bobbin winder here on the right side of the machine. First, you have the actual winder where you place your bobbin on top. And then to the right of that, you have this little lever. And when you push the lever over to the left, it gauges when the bobbin is full, and then it snaps back when your bobbin has been fully wound. And I'll show you all of that in a later video too. But it's a two-part winder. This is a supplemental spool pin, and you can use this to actually wind your bobbin while you're sewing, or you can use it as a secondary thread source when you're using a twin needle. Now moving down to the LCD screen, this is where you will make all of your selections for setting up your machine and making changes and adjustments. This is where all of the magic happens to get started sewing. And I'm going to show you all of that, but you can see here when you turn on your machine, when you power it up, this is what you will see. This is the screen that you will see, and you will have to actually touch it in order to start making selections. And we'll go all into that in another video. Down here at the bottom is a speaker, and you have a speaker because you can actually watch videos on your machine from the LCD screen. If there is some type of technique that you are not familiar with, you can look it up on your screen, find it, and then you can watch and listen to the video, and I will demonstrate that later. Next, we have the knee lifter slot. You will just insert your knee lifter into this slot and activate it with your knee. Now moving up, we have the operation buttons, and there are 7 different buttons and the sewing speed controller. And I'm going to go over all of those buttons later on. Here we have our flatbed attachment with the accessory compartment. In the accessory compartment is where you can store your presser feet, your bobbins, and any other attachments that fit inside of this compartment. And when you want to sew cylindrical pieces or tubular pieces, or if you're attaching sleeves, then you can remove the flatbed. Let's remove that. And when you remove it, it gives you access to the free arm. And this is where you will slide your sleeves and pant legs and cylindrical and tubular pieces onto. Okay, moving up over to the right side of the machine, we have the thread cutter. So you will simply pass the threads through the cutter to cut off the thread when you're done sewing a seam. And then up to the top of the machine again, we have the thread guide plate. So when you start to thread your machine, you're going to begin here, and you're going to pass the thread around the thread guide plate when threading the upper thread. And then you're going to just continue following the numbers on the machine to thread the machine. And I'm going to show you that in another video. We're going to actually go through the threading process and winding the bobbin. Just wanted to show you that part. Now let's take a look at the back side of the machine. And here over to the far right, we have the connector for the dual feed foot. Your machine comes with a dual feed foot, and I'm going to show you that later when we talk about accessories, but this is where you will connect that special foot. And then here on the top, you have your handle. So carrying your machine is easy, and it's very, very sturdy because this is a very heavy machine, and the handle is attached very well, so you're safe carrying it around. And here we have the presser foot lever, and this lever is what you will use to raise and lower your presser foot. It also helps when you're attaching your different feet to the machine. When you lower it, it just snaps right on. And now we're going to take a look at the right side of the machine. And here on the far right at the top, we have the air vent. So the air vent allows the air surrounding the motor to circulate. And it's very, very important that you're not placing this up against a wall or anything that's going to prevent that airflow, because that will help to prevent your machine from overheating. Do not cover your air vent while sewing, or anytime the machine is being used. Just don't cover it. Make sure that there's plenty of space in that area. And here we have the main power switch, and you will use this switch to turn the machine on and off. And here at the bottom, we have the power cord receptacle where you're going to insert the power cord. And to the left of the power cord receptacle, we have the sensor pin holder connector. So your machine comes with a sensor pin that you can use when you're operating the LCD screen. So you will connect the sensor pin holder into this slot. And when you get your machine, this slot will be covered with a protective cap. Down to the left of the connector, we have the sensor pin jack, and I will show you that accessory in a separate video. Next, we have the foot controller jack, and this is where you're going to insert your foot controller plug. And just above the controller jack, we have the USB port for a computer. So if you plan to import or export patterns between a computer and the sewing machine, then you will plug the USB cable into this USB port. Next, we have the USB port for a mouse. If you are planning to use a mouse or some type of USB media, then you will plug the USB media directly into this USB port. And at the very top, we have the hand wheel. Now, one thing you want to be very careful about is the direction in which you're rotating your hand wheel. You want to make sure that you always rotate your hand wheel toward you. That's counterclockwise to raise and lower the needle. The wheel should be turned toward the front of the machine. Never turn it away from you. Never turn it toward the back of the machine. Always counterclockwise toward you. Now let's take a look at the needle and presser foot section. So here at the very top, we have the buttonhole lever. The buttonhole lever is used with the automatic buttonhole foot to create buttonholes. And I will show you that foot in the next video, but this is that lever that you will pull down before you start to sew your automatic buttonhole. Next, we have the presser foot holder screw, and this is used to hold your presser foot in place. And underneath that, we have the presser foot holder. So your presser foot is attached to the presser foot holder. And then here we have the presser foot. The machine comes with the all-purpose presser foot attached, and then there are several other feet that come with the machine, and I'll show you that one in the next video when I talk about accessories. And down below we have the feed dogs, and the feed dogs help to feed the fabric through the machine while you're stitching. So as you are pressing on the presser foot, the feed dogs are working to move that fabric. And this is the bobbin cover, and underneath the bobbin cover is where you will set your bobbin before you start stitching. And over to the right, there is a lever that you will push over to the right to open it, and then you can snap it back in place after you have positioned the bobbin. And this little light gray piece is the needle plate cover, and you can remove the needle plate cover to clean a portion of the machine on the inside. And then this silver part up to the right is your needle plate. And here we have the needle bar thread guide. So when you are threading the machine, you're going to pass the upper thread through the needle bar thread guide before threading the needle. And then this screw is called our needle clamp screw, and this is the screw we're going to use when we're removing and replacing our needles. And you want to make sure that once you replace your needle that it is screwed on tight so that your needle doesn't fall out while you're stitching. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the operations buttons on the front side of the machine, and we're going to start with the one on the far left. This is the start and stop button. So when you press this button, the machine will sew a few stitches at a very slow speed, and then it will pick up to the speed that you set on your sewing speed controller, which I'll show you later. And then when you press the button again, the machine will stop. The button will change colors according to the machine's operation mode. So when it's green, the machine is ready to sew or is sewing. And when it's red, the machine will not be able to sew. Next, we have the reverse stitch button. So when you're using a straight stitch, a zigzag stitch, or an elastic zigzag stitch pattern that takes a reverse stitch, the machine will sew reverse stitches at a slow speed, but only while you're holding down this reverse stitch button. Now there is a key to this, and I'm going to show you this later when we get into the control panel in another video, but you can set it up to where whenever you start sewing, your machine will start off with a reverse stitch so that you don't have to use this button. But for this purpose, I just want to show you that when you press this button and hold it down, it will sew in reverse stitch. So you will use this button to sew a single stitch repeatedly so that you can tie it off. So if you're sewing a character or decorative stitch, you would press this button to end with a full stitch instead of at midpoint. So if you're sewing, let's say, a heart pattern, when you press this button, your pattern will follow, or your machine will continue stitching to the end of that pattern, and then it will sew the reinforcement stitch. And then you can see to the very right, there's a little light. This is the LED light, and it lights up while the machine is sewing a full motif, and then it automatically turns off when the sewing is stopped. To the right of that, we have our needle position button. So you will use this button when you're changing sewing direction or for detail sewing in small areas. So you would press the button to raise the needle, and then you would press it again to lower the needle. So let's say you're gonna sew to the end and then you need to pivot and turn direction on your fabric. You would press the button when you get to the end of your row of stitching to make sure that the needle is down in the fabric. Then you would lift your presser foot, pivot your fabric, lower your presser foot, and then continue stitching. To the right of that, we have the thread cutter button, and this is to cut off your threads when you're done sewing a seam. And then next we have the presser foot lifter button. So you will press this button to lower the presser foot and apply pressure to the fabric, and then you would press it again to raise the presser foot. And next we have the sewing speed controller, and this is the one that I mentioned earlier. So you're going to use this controller to adjust your sewing speed so that you can have control of feeding your fabric through the machine. So when you move your slider to the left, the slower the sewing speed will be. And then when you move it to the right, the faster or the higher your sewing speed. And it is recommended for new beginners, I'm going to say for new beginners, that you start off with slow speeds until you get familiar with feeding your fabric through your machines. And to the far right, we have the automatic threading button, and you will use this button to automatically thread your sewing needle. And I'm going to demonstrate that in a separate video when I talk about threading the machine and the bobbin. And finally, we're going to take a closer look at the flatbed attachment, and we're going to remove it from the machine by pulling it off to the left side. The flatbed attachment has two storage compartments, and we're going to open both of them up. First, we have one on the front, and there is a little notch at the bottom of the compartment that you will lift up and pull open. And then I find that I need to assist it with both hands, so I will pull up with my left hand on that tab, and then I'll use my right hand to pull it open over on the right side. And then to open the compartment on the back, I will use the tab at the top, and I'll pull that open while also using my right hand to assist it and open it on the right side. And the first thing you'll see when you open the front compartment is the presser foot storage tray. And this is where most of your presser feet will be stored that came with the machine. You can remove the storage tray, and then you will see that there is more space underneath for you to store either other presser feet or other accessories that come with the machine. And then in the back, there's more space for you to store accessories for your machine. And then you will see over to the left, there's a little small area of storage. Well, that's it for today. I hope you have enjoyed this walkthrough of the Babylock Chorus sewing machine. And if you are interested in purchasing one for yourself, then follow the link in my description box that will take you directly to my ambassador page so that you can learn more about the machine before purchasing. And then stay tuned because I have several more videos coming to teach you all about the Babylock Chorus. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.